Joshua. Chapter 1. After Moses, the servant of the Lord, had died, the Lord said to Moses' aide Joshua, son of Nun, "My servant Moses is dead, so prepare to cross the Jordan here, with all the people, into the land I will give the Israelites. As I promised Moses, I will deliver to you every place where you set foot. Your domain is to be all the land of the Hittites, from the desert and from Lebanon east to the great river Euphrates and west to the great sea. No one can withstand you while you live. I will be with you as I was with Moses. I will not leave you nor forsake you. Be firm and steadfast, so that you may give this people possession of the land which I swore to their fathers I would give them. Above all, be firm and steadfast, taking care to observe the entire law which my servant Moses enjoined on you. Do not swerve from it, either to the right or to the left, that you may succeed wherever you go. Keep this book of the law on your lips, recite it by day and by night, that you may observe carefully all that is written in it. Then you will successfully attain your goal. I command you, be firm and steadfast. Do not fear nor be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." So Joshua commanded the officers of the people, "Go through the camp and instruct the people. Prepare your provisions, for 3 days from now you shall cross the Jordan here to march in and take possession of the land which the Lord your God is giving you." Joshua reminded the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, "Remember what Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded you when he said, 'The Lord your God will permit you to settle in this land. Your wives, your children, and your livestock shall remain in the land Moses gave you here beyond the Jordan. But all the warriors among you must cross over armed ahead of your kinsmen, and you must help them until the Lord has settled your kinsmen, and they, like you, possess the land which the Lord your God is giving them. Afterward, you may return and occupy your own land, which Moses, the servant of the Lord, has given you east of the Jordan." "We will do all you have commanded us," they answered Joshua, "and we will go wherever you send us. We will obey you as completely as we obeyed Moses. But may the Lord your God be with you as he was with Moses. If anyone rebels against your orders and does not obey every command you give him, he shall be put to death. But be firm and steadfast." Joshua. Chapter 2. Then Joshua, son of Nun, secretly sent out 2 spies from Shittim, saying, "Go, reconnoiter the land and Jericho." When the 2 reached Jericho, they went into the house of a harlot named Rahab, where they lodged. But a report was brought to the king of Jericho that some Israelites had come there that night to spy out the land. So the king of Jericho sent Rahab the order, "Pull out the visitors who have entered your house, for they have come to spy out the entire land." The woman had taken the 2 men and hidden them, so she said, "True, the men you speak of came to me, but I did not know where they came from. At dark, when it was time for the gate to be shut, they left, and I do not know where they went. You will have to pursue them immediately to overtake them." Now, she had led them to the roof and hidden them among her stalks of flax spread out there. But the pursuers set out along the way to the fords of the Jordan, and once they had left, the gate was shut. Before the spies fell asleep, Rahab came to them on the roof and said, "I know that the Lord has given you the land, that a dread of you has come upon us, and that all the inhabitants of the land are overcome with fear of you. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the waters of the Red Sea before you when you came out of Egypt, and how you dealt with Sihon and Og, the two kings of the Amorites beyond the Jordan, whom you doomed to destruction. At these reports, we are disheartened. Everyone is discouraged because of you, since the Lord your God is God in heaven, above, and on earth below. Now then, swear to me by the Lord that since I am showing kindness to you, you in turn will show kindness to my family, and give me an unmistakable token that you are to spare my father and mother, brothers and sisters, and all their kin, and save us from death. We pledge our lives for yours. The men answered her, if you do not betray this errand of ours, we will be faithful in showing kindness to you when the Lord gives us the land. Then she let them down through the window with a rope, for she lived in a house built into the city wall. Go up into the hill country, she suggested to them, that your pursuers may not find you. Hide there for 3 days until they return. Then you may proceed on your way. The men answered her, this is how we will fulfill the oath you made us take. When we come into the land, tie the scarlet cord in the window through which you are letting us down, and gather your father and mother, your brothers, and all your family into your house. Should any of them pass outside doors of your house, he will be responsible for his own debts, and we shall be guiltless. But we shall be responsible if anyone in the house with you is harmed. If, however, you betray this errand of ours, we shall be quit of the oath you have made us take. Let it be as you say, she replied, and bade them farewell. When they were gone, she tied the scarlet cord in the window. They went up into the hills, where they stayed 3 days until their pursuers, who had sought them all along the road without finding them, returned. Then the two came back down from the hills, crossed the Jordan to Joshua, son of Nun, and reported all that had befallen them. They assured Joshua, the Lord has delivered all this land into our power. Indeed, all the inhabitants of the land are overcome with fear of us. Joshua, chapter 3. Early the next morning, Joshua moved with all the Israelites from Shittim to the Jordan, where they lodged before crossing over. 3 days later, the officers went through the camp and issued these instructions to the people. When you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord, your God, which the Levitical priests will carry, you must also break camp and follow it, that you may know the way to take, for you have not gone over this road before. But let there be a space of 2,000 cubits between you and the ark. Do not come nearer to it. Joshua also said to the people, sanctify yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will perform wonders among you. And he directed the priests to take up the ark of the covenant and go on ahead of the people. And they did so. Then the Lord said to Joshua, today I will begin to exalt you in the sight of all Israel, that they may know I am with you as I was with Moses. Now command the priests carrying the ark of the covenant to come to a halt in the Jordan when they reach the edge of the waters. So Joshua said to the Israelites, come here and listen to the words of the Lord your God. He continued, this is how you will know that there is a living God in your midst, who at your approach will dispossess the Canaanites, Hittites, Hivites, Perizzites, Girgashites, Amorites, and Jebusites. The ark of the covenant of the Lord of the whole earth will precede you into the Jordan. Now choose 12 men, one from each of the tribes of Israel. When the soles of the feet of the priests carrying the ark of the Lord of the whole earth, touch the water of the Jordan, it will cease to flow, for the water flowing down from upstream will halt in a solid bank. The people struck their tents to cross the Jordan, with the priests carrying the ark of the covenant ahead of them. No sooner had these priestly bearers of the ark waded into the waters at the edge of the Jordan, which overflows all its banks during the entire season of the harvest, than the waters flowing from upstream halted, backing up in a solid mass for a very great distance indeed, from Adam, a city, in the direction of Zarethan, while those flowing downstream toward the salt sea of the Arabah disappeared entirely. Thus, the people crossed over opposite Jericho, while all Israel crossed over on dry ground. The priests carrying the ark of the covenant of the Lord remained motionless on dry ground in the bed of the Jordan until the whole nation had completed the passage. Joshua chapter 4. After the entire nation had crossed the Jordan, the Lord said to Joshua, "Choose 12 men from the people, one from each tribe, and instruct them to take up 12 stones from this spot in the bed of the Jordan where the priests have been standing motionless. Carry them over with you and place them where you are to stay tonight." Summoning the 12 men whom he had selected from among the Israelites, one from each tribe, Joshua said to them, "Go to the bed of the Jordan in front of the ark of the Lord your God. Lift to your shoulders 1 stone apiece, so that they will equal in number the tribes of the Israelites. In the future, these are to be a sign among you. When your children ask you what these stones mean to you, you shall answer them, 'The waters of the Jordan ceased to flow before the ark of the covenant of the Lord, when it crossed the Jordan.' Thus these stones are to serve as a perpetual memorial to the Israelites." The 12 Israelites did as Joshua had commanded. They took up as many stones from the bed of the Jordan as there were tribes of the Israelites, and carried them along to the campsite, where they placed them according to the Lord's direction. Joshua also had 12 stones set up in the bed of the Jordan, on the spot where the priests stood, who were carrying the Ark of the Covenant. They are there to this day. The priests carrying the ark remained in the bed of the Jordan until everything had been done that the Lord had commanded Joshua to tell the people. The people crossed over quickly, and when all had reached the other side, the ark of the Lord, borne by the priests, also crossed to its place in front of them. The Reubenites, Gadites, and half-tribe of Manasseh, armed, marched in the vanguard of the Israelites as Moses had ordered. About 40,000 troops equipped for battle passed over before the Lord to the plains of Jericho. That day the Lord exalted Joshua in the sight of all Israel, and thenceforth, during his whole life, they respected him as they had respected Moses. Then the Lord said to Joshua, "Command the priests carrying the ark of the commandments to come up from the Jordan." Joshua did so, and when the priests carrying the ark of the covenant of the Lord had come up from the bed of the Jordan, as the soles of their feet regained the dry ground, the waters of the Jordan resumed their course, and as before, overflowed all its banks. The people came up from the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month and camped in Gilgal on the eastern limits of Jericho. At Gilgal, Joshua set up the 12 stones which had been taken from the Jordan, saying to the Israelites, "In the future, when the children among you ask their fathers what these stones mean. You shall inform them. Israel crossed the Jordan here on dry ground. For the Lord your God dried up the waters of the Jordan in front of you until you crossed over, just as the Lord your God had done at the Red Sea, which he dried up in front of us until we crossed over, in order that all the peoples of the earth may learn that the hand of the Lord is mighty, and that you may fear the Lord your God forever. Joshua chapter 5. When all the kings of the Amorites to the west of the Jordan and all the kings of the Canaanites by the sea heard that the Lord had dried up the waters of the Jordan before the Israelites until they crossed over, they were disheartened and lost courage at their approach. On this occasion, the Lord said to Joshua, "Make flint knives and circumcise the Israelite nation for the second time." So Joshua made flint knives and circumcised the Israelites at Gibeat Haralot under these circumstances. Of all the people who came out of Egypt, every man of military age had died in the desert during the journey after they left Egypt. Though all the men who came out were circumcised, none of those born in the deserts during the journey after the departure from Egypt were circumcised. Now the Israelites had wandered 40 years in the desert until all the warriors among the people that came forth from Egypt died off because they had not obeyed the command of the Lord. For the Lord swore that he would not let them see the land flowing with milk and honey, which he had promised their fathers he would give us. It was the children whom he raised up in their stead, whom Joshua circumcised, for these were yet with foreskins, not having been circumcised on the journey. When the rites had been performed, the whole nation remained in camp where they were until they recovered. Then the Lord said to Joshua, "Today I have removed the reproach of Egypt from you." Therefore the place is called Gilgal to the present day. While the Israelites were encamped at Gilgal on the plains of Jericho, they celebrated the Passover on the evening of the 14th of the month. On the day after the Passover, they ate of the produce of the land in the form of unleavened cakes and parched grain. On that same day after the Passover, on which they ate of the produce of the land, the manna ceased. No longer was there manna for the Israelites, who that year ate of the yield of the land of Canaan. While Joshua was near Jericho, he raised his eyes and saw one who stood facing him, drawn sword in hand. Joshua went up to him and asked, "Are you one of us or of our enemies?" He replied, "Neither. I am the captain of the hosts of the Lord, and I have just arrived." Then Joshua fell prostrate to the ground in worship and said to him, "What has my Lord to say to his servant?" The captain of the host of the Lord replied to Joshua, "Remove your sandals from your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy." And Joshua obeyed. Joshua chapter 6. Now, Jericho was in a state of siege because of the presence of the Israelites, so that no one left or entered. And to Joshua the Lord said, "I have delivered Jericho and its king into your power. Have all the soldiers circle the city, marching once around it. Do this for 6 days, with 7 priests carrying ram's horns ahead of the ark. On the 7th day, march around the city 7 times, and have the priests blow the horns. When they give a long blast on the ram's horns, and you hear that signal, all the people shall shout aloud. The wall of the city will collapse, and they will be able to make a frontal attack." Summoning the priests, Joshua, son of Nun, then ordered them to take up the Ark of the Covenant, with 7 of the priests carrying ram's horns in front of the Ark of the Lord. And he ordered the people to proceed in a circle around the city, with the picked troops marching ahead of the ark of the Lord. At this order they proceeded, with the 7 priests who carried the ram's horns before the Lord blowing their horns, and the ark of the covenant of the Lord following them. In front of the priests with the horns marched the picked troops. The rear guard followed the ark, and the blowing of horns was kept up continually as they marched. But the people had been commanded by Joshua not to shout or make any noise or outcry until he gave the word. Only then were they to shout. So he had the ark of the Lord circle the city, going once around it, after which they returned to camp for the night. Early the next morning, Joshua had the priests take up the ark of the Lord. The 7 priests bearing the ram's horns marched in front of the ark of the Lord, blowing their horns. Ahead of these marched the picked troops, while the rear guard followed the ark of the Lord, and the blowing of horns was kept up continually. On this second day, they again marched around the city once before returning to camp, and for 6 days in all, they did the same. On the 7th day, beginning at daybreak, they marched around the city 7 times in the same manner. On that day, only did they march around the city 7 times. The 7th time around, the priests blew the horns, and Joshua said to the people, "Now shout, for the Lord has given you the city and everything in it. It is under the Lord's ban. Only the harlot Rahab and all who are in the house with her are to be spared, because she hid the messengers we sent. But be careful not to take, in your greed, anything that is under the ban, else you will bring upon the camp of Israel this ban and the misery of it. All silver and gold and the articles of bronze or iron are sacred to the Lord. They shall be put in the treasury of the Lord." As the horns blew, the people began to shout. When they heard the signal horn, they raised a tremendous shout. The wall collapsed, and the people stormed the city in a frontal attack and took it. They observed the ban by putting to the sword all living creatures in the city, men and women, young and old, as well as oxen, sheep, and asses. Joshua directed the 2 men who had spied out the land, "Go into the harlot's house and bring out the woman with all her kin, as you swore to her you would do." The spies entered and brought out Rahab with her father, mother, brothers, and all her kin. Her entire family they led forth and placed them outside the camp of Israel. The city itself they burned with all that was in it, except the silver, gold, and articles of bronze and iron, which were placed in the treasury of the house of the Lord. Because Rahab the harlot had hidden the messengers whom Joshua had sent to reconnoiter Jericho, Joshua spared her with her family and all her kin, who continue in the midst of Israel to this day. On that occasion, Joshua imposed the oath, "Cursed before the Lord be the man who attempts to rebuild this city, Jericho. He shall lose his firstborn when he lays its foundation, and he shall lose his youngest son when he sets up its gates." Thus the Lord was with Joshua, so that his fame spread throughout the land. Joshua chapter 7. But the Israelites violated the ban. Achan, son of Carmi, son of Zerah, son of Zara, of the tribe of Judah, took goods that were under the ban, and the anger of the Lord flared up against the Israelites. Joshua next sent men from Jericho to Ai, which is near Bethel on its eastern side, with instructions to go up and reconnoiter the land. When they had explored Ai, they returned to Joshua and advised, "Do not send all the people up. If only about 2,000 or 3,000 go up, they can overcome Ai. The enemy there are few. You need not call for an effort from all the people." About 3,000 of the people made the attack, but they were defeated by those at Ai, who killed some 36 of them. They pressed them back across the clearing in front of the city gates till they broke ranks and defeated them finally on the descent, so that the confidence of the people melted away like water. Joshua, together with the elders of Israel, rent his garments and lay prostrate before the ark of the Lord until evening, and they threw dust on their heads. Alas, O Lord God, Joshua prayed, why did you ever allow this people to pass over the Jordan, delivering us into the power of the Amorites, that they might destroy us? Would that we had been content to dwell on the other side of the Jordan. Pray, Lord, what can I say now that Israel has turned his back to its enemies? When the Canaanites and the other inhabitants of the land hear of it, they will close in around us and efface our name from the earth. What will you do for your great name? The Lord replied to Joshua, Stand up. Why are you lying prostrate? Israel has sinned. They have violated the covenant which I enjoined on them. They have stealthily taken goods subject to the ban and have deceitfully put them in their baggage. If the Israelites cannot stand up to their enemies, but must turn their back to them, it is because they are under the ban. I will not remain with you unless you remove from among you whoever has incurred the ban. Rise, sanctify the people. Tell them to sanctify themselves before tomorrow, for the Lord, the God of Israel, says, You are under the ban, O Israel. You cannot stand up to your enemies until you remove from among you whoever has incurred the ban. In the morning, you must present yourselves by tribes. The tribe which the Lord designates shall come forward by clans. The clan which the Lord designates shall come forward by families. The family which the Lord designates shall come forward one by one. He who is designated as having incurred the ban shall be destroyed by fire with all that is his, because he has violated the covenant of the Lord and has committed a shameful crime in Israel. Early the next morning, Joshua had Israel come forward by tribes, and the tribe of Judah was designated. Then he had the clans of Judah come forward, and the clan of Zerah was designated. He had the clan of Zerah come forward by families, and Zabdi was designated. Finally, he had that family come forward one by one, and Achan, son of Carmi, son of Zabdi, son of Zerah of the tribe of Judah, was designated. Joshua said to Achan, My son, give to the Lord, the God of Israel, glory and honor by telling me what you have done. Do not hide it from me. Achan answered Joshua, I have indeed sinned against the Lord, the God of Israel. This is what I have done. Among the spoils, I saw a beautiful Babylonian mantle, 200 shekels of silver, and a bar of gold, 50 shekels in weight. In my greed, I took them. They are now hidden in the ground inside my tent, with the silver underneath. The messengers, whom Joshua sent, hastened to the tent and found them hidden there, with the silver underneath. They took them from the tent, brought them to Joshua and all the Israelites, and spread them out before the Lord. Then Joshua and all Israel took Achan, son of Zerah, with the silver, the mantle, and the bar of gold, and with his sons and daughters, his ox, his ass, and his sheep, his tent, and all his possessions, and led them off to the valley of Achor. Joshua said, The Lord bring upon you today the misery with which you have afflicted us. And all Israel stoned him to death and piled a great heap of stones over him, which remains to the present day. Then the anger of the Lord relented. That is why the place is called the Valley of Achor to this day. Joshua chapter 8. The Lord then said to Joshua, Do not be afraid or dismayed. Take all the army with you and prepare to attack Ai. I have delivered the king of Ai into your power, with his people, city, and land. Do to Ai and its king what you did to Jericho and its king, except that you may take its spoil and livestock as booty. Set an ambush behind the city. So Joshua and all the soldiers prepared to attack Ai. Picking out 30,000 warriors, Joshua sent them off by night with these orders. See that you ambush the city from the rear at no great distance. Then all of you be on the watch. The rest of the people and I will come up to the city. And when they make a sortie against us, as they did the last time, we will flee from them. They will keep coming out after us until we have drawn them away from the city, for they will think we are fleeing from them as we did the last time. When this occurs, rise from ambush and take possession of the city, which the Lord your God will deliver into your power. When you have taken the city, set it afire in obedience to the Lord's command. These are my orders to you. Then Joshua sent them away. They went to the place of ambush, taking up their position to the west of Ai, toward Bethel. Joshua, however, spent that night in the plain. Early the next morning, Joshua mustered the army and went up to Ai at its head with the elders of Israel. When all the troops he led were drawn up in position before the city, they pitched camp north of Ai, on the other side of the ravine. He took about 5,000 men and set them in ambush between Bethel and Ai, west of the city. Thus the people took up their stations, with the main body north of the city and the ambush west of it. And Joshua waited overnight among his troops. The king of Ai saw this, and he and all his army came out very early in the morning to engage Israel in battle at the descent toward the Arabah, not knowing that there was an ambush behind the city. Joshua and the main body of the Israelites fled in seeming defeat toward the desert, till the last of the soldiers in the city had been called out to pursue them. Since they were drawn away from the city, with every man engaged in this pursuit of Joshua and the Israelites, not a soldier remained in Ai or Bethel, and the city was open and unprotected. Then the Lord directed Joshua, "Stretch out the javelin in your hand toward Ai, for I will deliver it into your power." Joshua stretched out the javelin in his hand toward the city, and as soon as he did so, the men in ambush rose from their posts, rushed in, captured the city, and immediately set it on fire. By the time the men of Ai looked back, the smoke from the city was already sky high. Escape in any direction was impossible because the Israelites, retreating toward the desert, now turned on their pursuers. For when Joshua and the main body of Israelites saw that the city had been taken from ambush and was going up in smoke, they struck back at the men of Ai. Since those in the city came out to intercept them, the men of Ai were hemmed in by Israelites on either side, who cut them down without any fugitives or survivors except the king, whom they took alive and brought to Joshua. All the inhabitants of Ai, who had pursued the Israelites into the desert, were slain by the sword there in the open, down to the last man. Then all Israel returned and put to the sword those inside the city. There fell that day a total of 12,000 men and women, the entire population of Ai. Joshua kept the javelin in his hand, stretched out until he had fulfilled the doom on all the inhabitants of Ai. However, the Israelites took for themselves as booty the livestock and the spoil of that city, according to the command of the Lord issued to Joshua. Then Joshua destroyed the place by fire, reducing it to an everlasting mound of ruins, as it remains today. He had the king of Ai hanged on a tree until evening. Then At sunset, Joshua ordered the body removed from the tree and cast at the entrance of the city gate, where a great heap of stones was piled up over it, which remains to the present day. Later, Joshua built an altar to the Lord, the God of Israel, on Mount Ebal, of unknown stones on which no iron tool had been used, in keeping with the command to the Israelites of Moses, the servant of the Lord, as recorded in the book of the law. On this altar, they offered holocausts and peace offerings to the Lord. There, in the presence of the Israelites, Joshua inscribed upon the stones a copy of the law written by Moses, and all Israel, stranger and native alike, with their elders, officers, and judges, stood on either side of the ark, facing the Levitical priests who were carrying the ark of the covenant of the Lord. Half of them were facing Mount Gerizim and half Mount Ebal, thus carrying out the instructions of Moses, the servant of the Lord, for the blessing of the people of Israel on this first occasion. Then were read aloud all the words of the law, the blessings and the curses, exactly as written in the book of the law, every single word that Moses had commanded. Joshua read aloud to the entire community, including the women and children and the strangers who had accompanied Israel. Joshua chapter 9. When the news reached the kings west of the Jordan, in the mountain regions and in the foothills, and all along the coast of the Great Sea as far as Lebanon, Hittites, Amorites, Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, they all formed an alliance to launch a common attack against Joshua and Israel. On learning what Joshua had done to Jericho and Ai, the inhabitants of Gibeon put into effect a device of their own. They chose provisions for a journey, making use of old sacks for their asses and old wineskins torn and mended. They wore old patched sandals and shabby garments, and all the bread they took was dry and crumbly. Thus they journeyed to Joshua in the camp at Gilgal, where they said to him and to the men of Israel, "We have come from a distant land to propose that you make an alliance with us." But the men of Israel replied to the Hivites, "You may be living in land that is ours. How then can we make an alliance with you?" But they answered Joshua, "We are your servants." Then Joshua asked them, "Who are you? Where do you come from?" They answered him, "Your servants have come from a far-off land because of the fame of the Lord your God. For we have heard reports of all that he did in Egypt and all that he did to the two kings of the Amorites beyond the Jordan, Sihon, king of Heshbon, and Og, king of Bashan, who lived in Ashtaroth. So our elders and all the inhabitants of our country said to us, 'Take along provisions for the journey and go to meet them. Say to them, "We are your servants. We propose that you make an alliance with us." This bread of ours was still warm when we brought it from home as provisions the day we left to come to you. But now it is dry and crumbled. Here are our wineskins, which were new when we filled them, but now they are torn. Look at our garments and sandals, which are worn out from the very long journey." Then the Israelites' princes partook of their provisions without seeking the advice of the Lord. So Joshua made an alliance with them and entered into an agreement to spare them, which the princes of the community sealed with an oath. 3 days after the agreement was entered into, the Israelites learned that these people were from nearby and would be living in Israel. The third day on the road, the Israelites came to their cities of Gibeon, Chephirah, Beeroth, and Kiriath Jearim, but did not attack them, because the princes of the community had sworn to them by the Lord, the God of Israel. When the entire community grumbled against the princes, these all remonstrated with the people. We have sworn to them by the Lord, the God of Israel, and so we cannot harm them. Let us therefore spare their lives, and so deal with them, that we shall not be punished for the oath we have sworn to them. Thus the princes recommended that they be let live as hewers of wood and drawers of water for the entire community. And the community did as the princes advised them. Joshua summoned the Gibeonites and said to them, "Why did you lie to us and say that you lived at a great distance from us when you will be living in our very midst? For this are you accursed. Every one of you shall always be a slave, hewers of wood and drawers of water for the house of my God." They answered Joshua, "Your servants were fully informed of how the Lord your God commanded his servant Moses that you be given the entire land and that all its inhabitants be destroyed before you. Since, therefore, at your advance, we were in great fear for our lives, we acted as we did. And now that we are in your power, do with us what you think fit and right." Joshua did what he had decided while he saved them from being killed by the Israelites. At the same time, he made them, as they still are, hewers of wood and drawers of water for the community and for the altar of the Lord, in the place of the Lord's choice. Joshua chapter 10. Now Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, heard that in the capture and destruction of Ai, Joshua had done to that city and its king as he had done to Jericho and its king. He heard also that the inhabitants of Gibeon had made their peace with Israel, remaining among them, and that there was great fear abroad because Gibeon was large enough for a royal city, larger even than the city of Ai, and all its men were brave. So Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, sent for Hoham, king of Hebron, Piram, king of Jarmuth, Japhia, king of Lachish, and Debir, king of Eglon, to come to his aid for an attack on Gibeon, since it had concluded peace with Joshua and the Israelites. The 5 Amorite kings of Jerusalem, Hebron, Jarmuth, Lachish, and Eglon united all their forces and marched against Gibeon, where they took up siege positions. Thereupon, the men of Gibeon sent an appeal to Joshua in his camp at Gilgal. "Do not abandon your servants. Come up here quickly and save us. Help us, because all the Amorite kings of the mountain country have joined forces against us." So Joshua marched up from Gilgal with his picked troops and the rest of his soldiers. Meanwhile, the Lord said to Joshua, "Do not fear them, for I have delivered them into your power. Not one of them will be able to withstand you." And when Joshua made his surprise attack upon them after an all-night march from Gilgal, the Lord threw them into disorder before him. The Israelites inflicted a great slaughter on them at Gibeon and pursued them down the Base Horon slope, harassing them as far as Azekah and Makkedah. While they fled before Israel along the descent from Beth Horon, the Lord hurled great stones from the sky above them all the way to Azekah, killing many. More died from these hailstones than the Israelites slew with the sword. On this day, when the Lord delivered up the Amorites to the Israelites, Joshua prayed to the Lord and said in the presence of Israel, "Stand still, O sun, at Gibeon, O moon, in the valley of Aijalon." And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed, while the nation took vengeance on its foes. Is this not recorded in the book of Jasher? The sun halted in the middle of the sky. Not for a whole day did it resume its swift course. Never before or since was there a day like this, when the Lord obeyed the voice of a man, for the Lord fought for Israel. Then Joshua and all Israel returned to the camp at Gilgal. Meanwhile, the 5 kings who had fled hid in a cave at Makkedah. When Joshua was told that the 5 kings had been discovered hiding in a cave at Makkedah, he said, "Roll large stones to the mouth of the cave and post men over it to guard them. But do not remain there yourselves. Pursue your enemies and harry them in the rear. Do not allow them to escape to their cities, for the Lord your God has delivered them into your power." Once Joshua and the Israelites had finally inflicted the last blows in this very great slaughter, and the survivors had escaped from them into the fortified cities, all the army returned safely to Joshua and the camp at Makkedah, no man uttering a sound against the Israelites. Then Joshua said, "Open the mouth of the cave and bring out those 5 kings to me." Obediently, they brought out to him from the cave the 5 kings of Jerusalem, Hebron, Jarmuth, Lachish, and Eglon. When they had done so, Joshua summoned all the men of Israel and said to the commanders of the soldiers who had marched with him, "Come forward and put your feet on the necks of these kings." They came forward and put their feet upon their necks. Then Joshua said to them, "Do not be afraid or dismayed. Be firm and steadfast. This is what the Lord will do to all the enemies against whom you fight." Thereupon, Joshua struck and killed them and hanged them on 5 trees, where they remained hanging until evening. At sunset, they were removed from the trees at the command of Joshua and cast into the cave where they had hidden. Over the mouth of the cave, large stones were placed, which remain until this very day. Makkedah, too, Joshua captured and put to the sword at that time. He fulfilled the doom on the city, on its king, and on every person in it, leaving no survivors. Thus he did to the king of Makkedah what he had done to the king of Jericho. Joshua then passed on with all Israel from Makkedah to Libnah, which he attacked. Libnah also, with its king, the Lord, delivered into the power of Israel. He put it to the sword with every person there, leaving no survivors. Thus he did to its king what he had done to the king of Jericho. Joshua next passed on with all Israel from Libnah to Lachish, where they set up a camp during the attack. The Lord delivered Lachish into the power of Israel, so that on the 2nd day Joshua captured it and put it to the sword with every person in it, just as he had done to Libnah. At that time, Horam, king of Gaza, came up to help Lachish, but Joshua defeated him and his people, leaving him no survivors. From Lachish, Joshua passed on with all Israel to Eglon. Encamping near it, they attacked it and captured it the same day, putting it to the sword. He fulfilled the doom that day on every person in it, just as he had done at Lachish. From Eglon, Joshua went up with all Israel to Hebron, which they attacked and captured. They put it to the sword with its king, all its towns, and every person there, leaving no survivors. Just as Joshua had done to Eglon, he fulfilled the doom on it and on every person there. Then Joshua and all Israel turned back to Debir and attacked it, capturing it with its king and all its towns. They put them to the sword and fulfilled the doom on every person there, leaving no survivors. Thus was done to Debir and its king what had been done to Hebron, as well as to Libnah and its king. Joshua conquered the entire country, the mountain regions, the Negeb, the foothills, and the mountain slopes, with all their kings. He left no survivors, but fulfilled the doom on all who lived there, just as the Lord, the God of Israel, had commanded. Joshua conquered from Kadesh Barnea to Gaza and all the land of Goshen to Gibeon. All these kings and their lands Joshua captured in a single campaign, for the Lord, the God of Israel, fought for Israel. Thereupon Joshua, with all Israel, returned to the camp at Gilgal. Joshua, chapter 11. When Jabin, king of Hazor, learned of this, he sent a message to Jobab, king of Madon, to the king of Shimron, to the king of Akshaph, and to the northern kings in the mountain regions and in the Arabah, near Chinneroth, in the foothills, and in Naphath Dor to the west. These were Canaanites to the east and west, Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, and Jebusites in the mountain regions, and Hivites at the foot of Hermon in the land of Mizpah. They came out with all their troops, an army numerous as the sands on the seashore, and with a multitude of horses and chariots. All these kings joined forces and marched to the waters of Merom, where they encamped together to fight against Israel. The Lord said to Joshua, "Do not fear them, for by this time tomorrow I will stretch them slain before Israel. You must hamstring their horses and burn their chariots." Joshua with his whole army came upon them at the waters of Merom in a surprise attack. The Lord delivered them into the power of the Israelites, who defeated them and pursued them to Greater Sidon, to Misrephoth Maim, and eastward to the valley of Mizpeh. They struck them all down, leaving no survivors. Joshua did to them as the Lord had commanded. He hamstrung their horses and burned their chariots. At that time, Joshua, turning back, captured Hazor and slew its king with the sword. For Hazor formerly was the chief of all those kingdoms. He also fulfilled the doom by putting every person there to the sword till none was left alive. Hazor itself he burned. Joshua thus captured all those kings with their cities and put them to the sword, fulfilling the doom on them, as Moses, the servant of the Lord, had commanded. However, Israel did not destroy by fire any of the cities built on raised sites, except Hazor, which Joshua burned. The Israelites took all the spoil and livestock of these cities as their booty, but the people they put to the sword until they had exterminated the last of them, leaving none alive. As the Lord had commanded his servant Moses, so Moses commanded Joshua, and Joshua acted accordingly. He left nothing undone that the Lord had commanded Moses should be done. So Joshua captured all this land, the mountain regions, the entire Negeb, all the land of Goshen, the foothills, the Arabah, as well as the mountain regions and foothills of Israel, from Mount Halak that rises towards Seir as far as Balgad, in the Lebanon valley at the foot of Mount Hermon. All their kings he captured and put to death. Joshua waged war against all these kings for a long time. With the exception of the Hivites who lived in Gibeon, no city made peace with the Israelites. All were taken in battle. For it was the design of the Lord to encourage them to wage war against Israel, that they might be doomed to destruction and thus receive no mercy, but be exterminated, as the Lord had commanded Moses. At that time, Joshua penetrated the mountain regions and exterminated the Anakim in Hebron, Debir, Anab, the entire mountain region of Judah, and the entire mountain region of Israel. Joshua fulfilled the doom on them and on their cities, so that no Anakim were left in the land of the Israelites. However, some survived in Gaza, in Gath, and in Ashdod. Thus Joshua captured the whole country, just as the Lord had foretold to Moses. Joshua gave it to Israel as a heritage, apportioning it among the tribes. And the land enjoyed peace. Joshua, chapter 12. the kings of the land east of the Jordan, from the river Arnon to Mount Hermon, including all the eastern section of the Arabah, whom the Israelites conquered and whose lands they occupied, were first Sihon, king of the Amorites, who lived in Heshbon. His domain extended from Aroer, which is on the bank of the Wadi Arnon, to include the Wadi itself and the land northward, through half of Gilead to the Wadi Jabbok, as well as the Arabah from the eastern side of the Sea of Chinnereth, as far south as the eastern side of the Salt Sea of the Arabah, in the direction of Beth Jeshimoth, to a point under the slopes of Pisgah. Secondly, Og, king of Bashan, a survivor of the Rephaim, who lived at Ashtaroth and Edrei. He ruled over Mount Hermon, Salekah, and all Bashan, as far as the boundary of the Geshurites and Maacathites, and over half of Gilead, as far as the territory of Sihon, king of Heshbon. After Moses, the servant of the Lord, and the Israelites conquered them, he assigned their land to the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh as their property. This is a list of the kings whom Joshua and the Israelites conquered west of the Jordan, and whose land, from Baal-Gad in the Lebanon valley to Mount Halak, which rises towards Seir, Joshua apportioned to the tribes of Israel. It included the mountain regions and foothills, the Arabah, the slopes, the desert, and the Negeb, belonging to the Hittites, Amorites, Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. They were the kings of Jericho, Ai, which is near Bethel, Jerusalem, Hebron, Jarmuth, Lachish, Eglon, Gezer, Debir, Geder, Homa, Arad, Libnah, Adullam, Makkedah, Bethel, Tapua, Hepher, Afek, Lasharon, Medon, Hazor, Shimron, Akshap, Tanak, Megiddo, Kadesh, Jokneam at Carmel, and Dor in Naphath Dor, the foreign king at Gilgal, and the king of Tirzah, 31 kings in all. Joshua, chapter 13. When Joshua was old and advanced in years, the Lord said to him, "Though now you are old and advanced in years, a very large part of the land still remains to be conquered. This additional land includes all Geshur and all the districts of the Philistines, from the stream adjoining Egypt to the boundary of Ekron in the north is reckoned Canaanite territory, though held by the 5 lords of the Philistines in Gaza, Ashdod, Ashkelon, Gath, and Ekron, also where the Avim are in the south. All the land of the Canaanites from Meara of the Sidonians to Aphek, and the boundaries of the Amorites, and the Gebelite territory, and all the Lebanon on the east, from Baal-Gad at the foot of Mount Hermon to Labo in the land of Hamath. At the advance of the Israelites, I will drive out all the Sidonian inhabitants of the mountain regions between Lebanon and Misrephoth-maim. At least include these areas in the division of the Israelite heritage, just as I have commanded you. Now, therefore, a portion among the 9 tribes and the half-tribe of Manasseh, the land which is to be their heritage. Now the other half of the tribe of Manasseh, as well as the Reubenites and Gadites, had received their heritage, which Moses, the servant of the Lord, had given them east of the Jordan, from Aroer on the bank of the Wadi Arnon, and the city in the Wadi itself, through the tableland of Medeba and Dibon, with the rest of the cities of Sihon, king of the Amorites, who reigned in Heshbon, to the boundary of the Ammonites, also Gilead, and the territory of the Geshurites and Maacathites, all Mount Hermon, and all Bashan, as far as Salekah, the entire kingdom in Bashan of Og, a survivor of the Rephaim, who reigned at Ashtaroth and Edrei. Though Moses conquered and occupied these territories, the Israelites did not dislodge the Geshurites and Maacathites, so that Geshur and Maacath survive in the midst of Israel to this day. However, to the tribe of Levi Moses assigned no heritage, since, as the Lord had promised them, the Lord, the God of Israel, is their heritage. What Moses gave to the Reubenites clans. Their territory reached from Aroer on the bank of the Wadi Arnon and the city in the Wadi itself, through the tableland about Medeba, to include Heshbon and all its towns, which are on the tableland, Dibon, Bamoth Baal, Beth Baal Meon, Jahaz, Kedemoth, Mephat, Kriatem, Sibma, Zereth Shahar, on the knoll within the valley, Beth Peor, the slopes of Pisgah, Beth Jeshimoth, and the other cities of the tableland, and generally of the kingdom of Sihon. This Amorite king, who reigned in Heshbon, Moses had killed with his vassals, the princes of Midian, who were settled in the land, Evi, Rechem, Zur, Hur, and Reba. And among their slain followers, the Israelites put to the sword also the soothsayer Balaam, son of Beor. The boundary of the Reubenites was the bank of the Jordan. These cities and their villages were the heritage of the clans of the Reubenites. What Moses gave to the Gadite clans. Their territory included Jazer, all the cities of Gilead, and half the land of the Ammonites as far as Aroer, toward Rabbah, that is, from Heshbon to Ramat Mizpeh and Betonim, and from Mahanaim to the boundary of Lodebar. And in the Jordan Valley, Beth Haram, Beth Nimrah, Sukkot, Zaphon, the other part of the kingdom of Sihon, king of Heshbon, with the bank of the Jordan to the southeastern tip of the Sea of Chinnereth. These cities and their villages were the heritage of the clans of the Gadites. What Moses gave to the clans of the half-tribe of Manasseh. Their territory included Mahanaim, all of Bashan, the entire kingdom of Og, king of Bashan, and all the villages of Jair, which are 60 cities in Bashan. Half of Gilead, with Ashtaroth and Edrei, once the royal cities of Og in Bashan, fell to the descendants of Machir, son of Manasseh, for half the clans descended from Machir. These are the portions which Moses gave when he was in the plains of Moab, beyond the Jordan east of Jericho. However, Moses gave no heritage to the tribe of Levi, since the Lord himself, the God of Israel, is their heritage as he promised. Joshua. Chapter 14. Here follow the portions which the Israelites received in the land of Canaan. Eleazar the priest Joshua, son of Nun, and the heads of families in the tribes of the Israelites determined their heritage by lot in accordance with the instructions the Lord had given through Moses concerning the remaining 9.5 tribes. For to 2.5 tribes, Moses had already given a heritage beyond the Jordan. And though the Levites were given no heritage among the tribes, the descendants of Joseph formed 2 tribes, Manasseh and Ephraim. The Levites themselves received no share of the land except cities to live in, with their pasture lands for the cattle and flocks. Thus, in apportioning the land, did the Israelites carry out the instructions of the Lord to Moses. When the Judahites came up to Joshua in Gilgal, the Kenizzite Caleb, son of Jephunneh, said to him, "You know what the Lord said to the man of God, Moses, about you and me in Kadesh Barnea. I was 40 years old when the servant of the Lord Moses sent me from Kadesh Barnea to reconnoiter the land, and I brought back to him a conscientious report. My fellow scouts who went up with me discouraged the people, but I was completely loyal to the Lord my God. On that occasion, Moses swore this oath, 'The land where you have set foot shall become your heritage, and that of your descendants forever, because you have been completely loyal to the Lord my God.' Now, as he promised, The Lord has preserved me while Israel was journeying through the desert for the 45 years since the Lord spoke thus to Moses. And although I am now 85 years old, I am still as strong today as I was the day Moses sent me forth, with no less vigor, whether for war or for ordinary tasks. Give me, therefore, this mountain region which the Lord promised me that day, as you yourself heard. True, the Anakim are there with large fortified cities, but if the Lord is with me, I shall be able to drive them out, as the Lord promised. Joshua blessed Caleb, son of Jephunneh, and gave him Hebron as his heritage. Therefore, Hebron remains the heritage of the Kenizzite Caleb, son of Jephunneh, to the present day, because he was completely loyal to the Lord, the God of Israel. Hebron was formerly called Kiriath Arba, for Arba, the greatest among the Anakim, and the land enjoyed peace. Joshua chapter 15. The lot for the clans of the Judahite tribe fell in the extreme south toward the boundary of Edom, the desert of Zin in the Negeb. The boundary there ran from the bay that forms the southern end of the Salt Sea, southward below the pass of Akrabim, across through Zin, up to a point south of Kadesh Barnea, across to Hezron, and up to Adar. From there, looping around Karka, it crossed to Asmon, and then joined the Wadi of Egypt, before coming out at the sea. This is your southern boundary. The eastern boundary was the Salt Sea as far as the mouth of the Jordan. The northern boundary climbed from the bay where the Jordan meets the sea, up to Beth Hogla, and ran north of Beth Araba, up to Eben Bohan ben Reuben. Thence it climbed to Debir, north of the Vale of Achor, in the direction of the Gilgal that faces the pass of Adumim, on the south side of the Wadi. From there it crossed to the waters of En Shemesh, and emerged at En Rogel, climbing again to the valley of Ben Hinnom, on the southern flank of the Jebusites. That is Jerusalem. The boundary rose to the top of the mountain at the northern end of the valley of Rephaim, which bounds the valley of Hinnom on the west. From the top of the mountain, it ran to the fountain of waters of Nephtoah, extended to the cities of Mount Ephron, and continued to Bala, or Kiriath Jearim. From Bala, the boundary curved westward to Mount Seir and passed north of the ridge of Mount Jearim, that is Chesalon. Thence it descended to Beth Shemesh and ran across to Timnah. It then extended along the northern flank of Ekron, continued through Shikkeron, and across to Mount Bala, thence to include Jabneel before it came out at the sea. The western boundary was the Great Sea and its coast. This was the complete boundary of the clans of the Judahites. As the Lord had commanded, Joshua gave Caleb, son of Jephunneh, a portion among the Judahites, namely Kiriath Arba. Arba was the father of Anak, that is, Hebron, and Caleb drove out from there the three Anakim, the descendants of Anak, Shashai, Ahiman, and Talmai. From there he marched up against the inhabitants of Debir, which was formerly called Kiriath Sepher. Caleb said, I will give my daughter Aksah in marriage to the one who attacks Kiriath Sepher and captures it. Othniel, son of Caleb's brother Kenaz, captured it, and so Caleb gave him his daughter Aksah in marriage. On the day of her marriage to Othniel, she induced him to ask her father for some land. Then, as she alighted from the ass, Caleb asked her, What is troubling you? She answered, Give me an additional gift. Since you have assigned to me land in the Negeb, give me also pools of water. So he gave her the upper and the lower pools. This is the heritage of the clans of the tribe of Judahites. The cities of the tribe of the Judahites in the extreme southern district toward Edom were Kabzeel, Eder, Jagur, Kina, Dimona, Adada, Kedesh, Hazor, and Itnan, Zip, Telem, Bealoth, Hazor Hadatta, and Kiriath Hezron, that is Hazor, Amam, Shema, Molada, Hazargada, Heshmon, Beth Pelet, Hazashual, Beersheba, and Biziotia, Bala, Iim, Ezem, Eltolad, Chesil, Horma, Ziklag, Madmana, Sansana, Lebaoth, Shilhim, and En Rimmon, a total of 29 cities with their villages. In the foothills, Eshtaol, Zora, Ashna, Zanoah, Enganim, Tapua, Enam, Jarmut, Adullam, Soko, Azekah, Sharaim, Adithaim, Gedera, and Gederothaim. 14 cities and their villages. Zenan, Hadashah, Migdalgad, Dilean, Mizpeh, Joktheel, Lachish, Bozkat, Eglon, Kabon, Lamam, Chitlish, Gederoth, Beth Dagon, Nama, and Makeda. 16 cities and their villages. Libnah, Etah, Ashan, Iftah, Ashna, Nizib, Keilah, Aksib, and Mareshah. 9 cities and their villages. Ekron and its towns and villages, from Ekron to the sea. All the towns that lie alongside Ashdod, and their villages, Ashdod and its towns and villages, Gaza and its towns and villages, as far as the Wadi of Egypt and the coast of the Great Sea. In the mountain regions, Shamir, Jatir, Soko, Dana, Kiryat Sana, that is Debir, Anab, Eshtemo, Anim, Goshen, Holon, and Gilo, 11 cities and their villages. Arab, Duma Eshan, Janim, Beth Tapua, Afekah, Humta, Kiryat Arba, that is Hebron, and Zior, 9 cities and their villages. Maon, Carmel, Ziph, Guta, Jezreel, Jokdim, Zanoah, Kain, Gibeah, and Timnah, 10 cities and their villages. Halhul, Beth Zur, Gedor, Marath, Bethanot, and Eltekon, 6 cities and their villages. Tekoa, Ephrathah, that is Bethlehem, Peor, Etam, Kulom, Tatam, Zorz, Karim, Galim, Betha, and Manoko, 11 cities and their villages. Kiryat Baal, that is Kiryat Jearim, and Rabbah, 2 cities and their villages. In the desert, Beth Araba, Midin, Sekaka, Nibshan, Ir Hamelah, and En-Gedi, 6 cities and their villages. But the Jebusites who lived in Jerusalem, the Judahites, could not drive out. So the Jebusites dwell in Jerusalem beside the Judahites to the present day. Joshua, chapter 16. The lot that fell to the Josephites extended from the Jordan at Jericho to the waters of Jericho, east of the desert. Then the boundary went up from Jericho to the heights at Bethel. Leaving Bethel for Luz, it crossed the ridge to the border of the Archetes at Ataroth and descended westward to the border of the Japletites, to that of the lower Beth Horon, and to Gezer, ending thence at the sea. Within the heritage of Manasseh and Ephraim, sons of Joseph, the dividing line for the heritage of the clans of the Ephraimites ran from east of Ataroth Ada to upper Beth Horonand, thence to the sea. From Mikmethat on the north, their boundary curved eastward around Ta'anath Shiloh and continued east of it to Janoah. From there, it descended to Ataroth and Nara, and skirting Jericho, it ended at the Jordan. From Tapua, the boundary ran westward to the Wadi Kana and ended at the sea. This was the heritage of the clans of the Ephraimites, including the villages that belonged to each city set aside for the Ephraimites within the territory of the Manassehites. But they did not drive out the Canaanites living in Gezer, who live on within Ephraim to the present day, though they have been impressed as laborers. Joshua, chapter 17. Now, as for the lot that fell to the tribe of Manasseh, as the firstborn of Joseph, since his eldest son, Machir, the father of Gilead, was a warrior who had already obtained Gilead and Bashan, the allotment was now made to the other descendants of Manasseh, the clans of Abiezer, Helek, Asriel, Shechem, Hepher, and Shemida, the other male children of Manasseh, son of Joseph. Furthermore, Zelophehad, son of Hepher, son of Gilead, son of Machir, son of Manasseh, had no sons, but only daughters, whose names were Mahlah, Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. These presented themselves to Eleazar the priest, to Joshua, son of Nun, and to the princes, saying, The Lord commanded Moses to give us a heritage among our kinsmen. So, in obedience to the command of the Lord, a heritage was given to each of them among their father's kinsmen. Thus 10 shares fell to Manasseh, apart from the land of Gilead and Bashan, beyond the Jordan, since these female descendants of Manasseh received each a portion among his sons. The land of Gilead fell to the rest of the Manassehites. Manasseh bordered on Asher. From Mikmetzat, near Shechem, another boundary ran southward to include the natives of En-Tappuah, because the district of Tappuah belonged to Manasseh, although Tappuah itself was an Ephraimite city on the border of Manasseh. This same boundary continued down to the Wadi Kana. The cities that belonged to Ephraim from among the cities in Manasseh were those to the south of that wadi. Thus the territory of Manasseh ran north of the wadi and ended at the sea. The land on the south belonged to Ephraim, and that on the north to Manasseh. With the sea as their common boundary, they reached Asher on the north and Issachar on the east. Moreover, in Issachar and in Asher, Manasseh was awarded Beth Shean and his towns, Ibleam and his towns, Dor and his towns and the natives there, Endor and his towns and natives, Taanach and his towns and natives, and Megiddo and his towns and natives. The third is Napat Dor. Since the Manassehites could not conquer these cities, the Canaanites persisted in this region. When the Israelites grew stronger, they impressed the Canaanites as laborers, but they did not drive them out. The descendants of Joseph said to Joshua, Why have you given us only one lot and one share as our heritage? Our people are too many because of the extent to which the Lord has blessed us. Joshua answered them, If you are too many, go up to the forest and clear out a place for yourselves there in the land of the Perizzites and Rephaim, since the mountain regions of Ephraim are so narrow. For the Josephites said, Our mountain regions are not enough for us. On the other hand, the Canaanites living in the valley region all have iron chariots, in particular those in Beth Shean and its towns, and those in the valley of Jezreel. Joshua therefore said to Ephraim and Manasseh, the house of Joseph, You are a numerous people and very strong. You shall have not merely one share, for the mountain region which is now forest shall be yours when you clear it. Its adjacent land shall also be yours if, despite their strength and iron chariots, you drive out the Canaanites. Joshua chapter 18. After they had subdued the land, the whole community of the Israelites assembled at Shiloh, where they set up the meeting tent. 7 tribes among the Israelites had not yet received their heritage. Joshua therefore said to the Israelites, How much longer will you put off taking steps to possess the land which the Lord, the God of your fathers, has given you? Choose 3 men from each of your tribes. I will commission them to begin a survey of the land, which they shall describe for purposes of inheritance. When they return to me, you shall divide it into 7 parts. Judah is to retain its territory in the south, and the house of Joseph its territory in the north. You shall bring here to me the description of the land in 7 sections. I will then cast lots for you here, before the Lord our God. For the Levites have no share among you, because the priesthood of the Lord is their heritage, while Gad, Reuben, and the half-tribe of Manasseh have already received the heritage east of the Jordan, which Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave them. When those who were to map out the land were ready for the journey, Joshua instructed them to survey the land, prepare a description of it, and return to him. Then he would cast lots for them there before the Lord in Shiloh. So they went through the land, listed its cities in writing in 7 sections, and returned to Joshua in the camp at Shiloh. Joshua then divided up the land for the Israelites into their separate shares, casting lots for them before the Lord in Shiloh. 1 lot fell to the clans of the tribe of Benjaminites. The territory allotted them lay between the descendants of Judah and those of Joseph. Their northern boundary began at the Jordan and went over the northern flank of Jericho, up westward into the mountains, till it reached the desert of Beth Aven. From there, it crossed over to the southern flank of Luz, that is Bethel. Then it ran down to Ataroth Adar, on the mountaintop south of Lower Beth Horon. For the western border, the boundary line swung south from the mountaintop opposite Beth Horon till it reached Kiriath Baal, that is Kiriath Jearim, which city belonged to the Judahites. This was the western boundary. The southern boundary began at the limits of Kiriath Jearim and projected to the spring at Nephtoah. It went down to the edge of the mountain on the north of the valley of Rephaim, where it faces the valley of Ben Hinnom, and continuing down the valley of Hinnom along the southern flank of the Jebusites, reached En-Rogel. Inclining to the north, it extended to En-Shemesh and thence to Gelilot, opposite the pass of Adumim. Then it dropped to Eben Bohan ben Reuben, across the northern flank of the Arabah overlook, down into the Arabah. From there, the boundary continued across the northern flank of Beth Hogla and extended to the northern tip of the Salt Sea, at the southern end of the Jordan. This was the southern boundary. The Jordan bounded it on the east. This was how the heritage of the clans of the Benjaminites was bounded on all sides. Now the cities belonging to the clans of the tribe of the Benjaminites were Jericho, Beth Hogla, Emek-Keziz, Beth Arabah, Zemaraim, Bethel, Avim, Parah, Ophrah, Chephar Ammoni, Ophni, and Geba, 12 cities and their villages. Also Gibeon, Ramah, Beeroth, Mizpeh, Chephirah, Mozah, Rechem, Epil, Taralah, Zelah, Haleph, the Jebusite city, that is Jerusalem, Gibeah, and Kiriath, 14 cities and their villages. This was the heritage of the clans of Benjaminites. Joshua, chapter 19. The second lot fell to Simeon. The heritage of the clans of the tribe of Simeonites lay within that of the Judahites. For their heritage, they received Beersheba, Shema, Molada, Hazar-Shual, Bala, Ezem, Eltolad, Betul, Homa, Ziklag, Beth-Markaboth, Hazar-Susah, Beth-Lebaoth, and Sharuhen, 13 cities and their villages. Also En-Rimmon, Etah, and Ashan, 4 cities and their villages, besides all the villages around these cities, as far as Baalat-Beer, that is, Ramoth Negeb. This was the heritage of the clans of the tribe of the Simeonites. This heritage of the Simeonites was within the confines of the Judahites. For since the portion of the latter was too large for them, the Simeonites obtained their heritage within it. The third lot fell to the clans of the Zebulunites. The limit of their heritage was at Sarid. Their boundary went up west and through Marial, reaching Dabeshet, and the Wadi, that is near Jokneam. From Sarid eastward, it ran to the district of Chislot Tabor, onto Dabarat, and up to Japhia. From there, it continued eastward to Gath-Hepher, and to Eth-Kazin, extended to Rimmon, and turned to Nea. Skirting north of Hanaton, the boundary ended at the valley of Iftahel. Thus with Katat, Nahalal, Shimron, Idalah, and Bethlehem, there were 12 cities and their villages to comprise the heritage of the clans of the Zebulunites. The fourth lot fell to Issachar. The territory of the clans of the Issacharites included Jezreel, Chesuloth, Shunem, Haparaim, Shion, Anaharat, Rabbit, Kishion, Ebez, Remet, Enganim, Enhada, and Beth Pazes. The boundary reached Tabor, Shahazuma, and Beth Shemesh, ending at the Jordan. These 16 cities and their villages were the heritage of the clans of the Issacharites. The fifth lot fell to the clans of the tribe of the Asherites. Their territory included Helkat, Hali, Beten, Akshaph, Alamelech, Amad, and Mishal, and reached Carmel on the west and Shihor Libnath. In the other direction, it ran eastward of Beth Dagon, reached Zebulun and the valley of Iftahel, and then north of Beth Emek and Nael, it extended to Kabul, Mishal, Abdon, Rehob, Hamon, and Kana, near Greater Sidon. Then the boundary turned back to Ramah and to the fortress city of Tyre. Thence it cut back to Hosah and ended at the sea. Thus, with Mahalab, Akzib, Umah, Akko, Aphek, and Rehob, there were 22 cities and their villages to comprise the heritage of the clans of the tribe of the Asherites. The sixth lot fell to the Naphtalites. The boundary of the clans of the Naphtalites extended from Heleph, from the oak at Zaananim, to Lakum, including Adami Nekeb and Jabneel, and ended at the Jordan. In the opposite direction, westerly, it ran through Aznot Tabor, and from there extended to Hukok. It touched Zebulun on the south, Asher on the west, and the Jordan on the east. The fortified cities were Ziddim, Zer, Hamath, Rakat, Chinneret, Adamah, Ramah, Hazor, Kedesh, Edrei, and Hazor, Yaeron, Migdal El, Horem, Beth Anath, and Beth Shemesh, 19 cities and their villages to comprise the heritage of the clans of the tribe of the Naphtalites. The seventh lot fell to the clans of the tribe of Danites. Their heritage was the territory of Zorah, Eshtaol, Ir-Shemesh, Shalabin, Aijalon, Itla, Elon, Timnah, Ekron, Elteco, Gibbethon, Baalat, Jehud, Bene Berak, Gath-Rimmon, Mijakon, and Rakon, with the coast at Joppa. But the territory of the Danites was too small for them. So the Danites marched up and attacked Leshem, which they captured and put to the sword. Once they had taken possession of Leshem, they renamed the settlement after their ancestor Dan. These cities and their villages were the heritage of the clans of the tribe of the Danites. When the last of them had received the portions of the land they were to inherit, the Israelites assigned a heritage in their midst to Joshua, son of Nun. In obedience to the command of the Lord, they gave him the city which he requested, Timnath-Serah, in the mountain region of Ephraim. He rebuilt the city and made it his home. These are the final portions into which Eleazar the priest Joshua, son of Nun, and the heads of families in the tribes of the Israelites divided the land by lot in the presence of the Lord at the door of the meeting tent in Shiloh. Joshua chapter 20. The Lord said to Joshua, "Tell the Israelites to designate the cities of which I spoke to them through Moses, to which one guilty of accidental and unintended homicide may flee for asylum from the avenger of blood. To one of these cities the killer shall flee, and standing at the entrance of the city gate, he shall plead his case before the elders, who must receive him and assign him a place in which to live among them. Though the avenger of blood pursues him, they are not to deliver up the homicide who slew his fellow man unintentionally and not out of previous hatred. Once he has stood judgment before the community, he shall live on in that city till the death of the high priest who is in office at the time. Then the killer may go back home to his own city from which he fled. So they set apart Kadesh in Galilee, in the mountain region of Naphtali, Shechem in the mountain region of Ephraim, and Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, in the mountain region of Judah. And beyond the Jordan east of Jericho, they designated Bezer on the open tableland in the tribe of Reuben, Ramoth in Gilead in the tribe of Gad, and Golan in Bashan in the tribe of Manasseh. These were the designated cities to which any Israelite or stranger living among them who had killed a person accidentally might flee to escape death at the hand of the avenger of blood until he could appear before the community. Joshua chapter 21. The heads of the Levite families came up to Eleazar the priest, to Joshua, son of Nun, and to the heads of families of the other tribes of the Israelites at Shiloh in the land of Canaan, and said to them, "The Lord commanded through Moses that cities be given us to dwell in, with pasture lands for our livestock, out of their own heritage. In obedience to this command of the Lord, the Israelites gave the Levites the following cities with their pasture lands. When the first lot among the Levites fell to the clans of the Kohathites, the descendants of Aaron the priest obtained 13 cities by lot from the tribes of Judah, Simeon, and Benjamin. The rest of the Kohathites obtained 10 cities by lot from the clans of the tribe of Ephraim, from the tribe of Dan, and from the half-tribe of Manasseh. The Gershonites obtained 13 cities by lot from the clans of the tribe of Issachar, from the tribe of Asher, from the tribe of Naphtali, and from the half-tribe of Manasseh. The clans of the Merarites obtained 12 cities from the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and Zebulun. These cities, with their pasture lands, the Israelites allotted to the Levites in obedience to the Lord's command through Moses. From the tribes of the Judahites and Simeonites, they designated the following cities and assigned them to the descendants of Aaron in the Kohathite clan of the Levites, since the first lot fell to them. First, Kiriath Arba. Arba was the father of Anak, that is, Hebron, in the mountain region of Judah, with the adjacent pasture lands, although the open country and villages belonging to the city had been given to Caleb, son of Jephunneh, as his property. Thus, to the descendants of Aaron, the priests were given the city of asylum for homicides at Hebron, with its pasture lands, also Libnah with its pasture lands, Jatta with its pasture lands, Eshtemoa with its pasture lands, Holon with its pasture lands, Debir with its pasture lands, Ashan with its pasture lands, Juttah with its pasture lands, and Beth Shemesh with its pasture lands, 9 cities from the 2 tribes mentioned. From the tribe of Benjamin, they obtained the 4 cities of Gibeon with its pasture lands, Geba with its pasture lands, Anathoth with its pasture lands, and Almon with its pasture lands. These cities, which with their pasture lands belonged to the priestly descendants of Aaron, were 13 in all. The rest of the Kohathite clans among the Levites obtained by lots from the tribe of Ephraim 4 cities. They were assigned with its pasture lands, the city of asylum for homicides at Shechem in the mountain region of Ephraim, also Gezer with its pasture lands, Kibzaim with its pasture lands, and Beth Horon with its pasture lands. From the tribe of Dan, they obtained the 4 cities of Elteke with its pasture lands, Gibeton with its pasture lands, Aijalon with its pasture lands. These cities, which with their pasture lands belong to the rest of the Kohathite clans, were 10 in all. The Gershonite clan of the Levites received from the half-tribe of Manasseh 2 cities, the city of asylum for homicides at Golan, with its pasture lands, and also Beth Ashtaroth with its pasture lands. From the tribe of Issachar, they obtained the 4 cities of Kishon with its pasture lands, Daberat with its pasture lands, Jarmuth with its pasture lands, the cities of En-Ganim with its pasture lands. From the tribe of Asher, the 4 cities of Mishal with its pasture lands, Abdon with its pasture lands, Helkat with its pasture lands, and Rehob with its pasture lands. And from the tribe of Naphtali, 3 cities, the city of asylum for homicides at Kadesh in Galilee with its pasture lands, also Hamath with its pasture lands, and Rakat with its pasture lands. These cities, which with their pasture lands belonged to the Gershonite clans, were 13 in all. The Merarite clans, the last of the Levites, received from the tribe of Zebulun the 4 cities of Jokneam, with its pasture lands, Karta with its pasture lands, Rimmon with its pasture lands, and Nahalal with its pasture lands. Also, across the Jordan, from the tribe of Reuben, 4 cities, the city of asylum for homicides at Bezer with its pasture lands, Jahaz with its pasture lands, Kedemoth with its pasture lands, and Mephath with its pasture lands. And from the tribe of Gad, a total of 4 cities, the city of asylum for homicides at Ramoth in Gilead with its pasture lands, also Mahanaim with its pasture lands, Heshbon with its pasture lands, and Jazer with its pasture lands. The cities which were allotted to the Merarite clans, the last of the Levites, were therefore 12 in all. Thus, the total number of cities within the territory of the Israelites, which, with their pasture lands, belonged to the Levites, was 48. With each and every one of these cities went the pasture lands round about it. And so the Lord gave Israel all the land he had sworn to their fathers he would give them. Once they had conquered and occupied it, the Lord gave them peace on every side, just as he had promised their fathers. Not one of their enemies could withstand them. The Lord brought all their enemies under their power. Not a single promise that the Lord made to the house of Israel was broken. Everyone was fulfilled. Joshua chapter 22. At that time, Joshua summoned the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, and said to them, "You have done all that. Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded you, and have obeyed every command I gave you. For many years now, you have not once abandoned your kinsmen, but have faithfully carried out the commands of the Lord your God. Since, therefore, the Lord your God has settled your kinsmen as he promised them, you may now return to your tents beyond the Jordan, to your own land, which Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave you. But be very careful to observe the precepts and law which Moses, the servant of the Lord, enjoined upon you. Love the Lord your God. Follow him faithfully. Keep his commandments. Remain loyal to him and serve him with your whole heart and soul." Joshua then blessed them and sent them away to their own tents. For to half the tribe of Manasseh Moses had assigned land in Bashan, and to the other half Joshua had given a portion, along with their kinsmen, west of the Jordan. What Joshua said to them when he sent them off to their tents with his blessing was, "Now that you are returning to your own tents with great wealth, with very numerous livestock, with silver, gold, bronze, and iron, and with a very large supply of clothing, divide these spoils of your enemies with your kinsmen there." So the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh left the other Israelites at Shiloh in the land of Canaan. and returned to the land of Gilead, their own property, which they had received according to the Lord's command through Moses. When the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh came to the region of the Jordan in the land of Canaan, they built there at the Jordan a conspicuously large altar. The other Israelites heard the report that the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh had built an altar in the region of the Jordan facing the land of Canaan, across from them, and therefore they assembled their whole community at Shiloh to declare war on them. First, however, they sent to the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh in the land of Gilead an embassy consisting of Phinehas, son of Eleazar the priest, and 10 princes, one from every tribe of Israel, each one being both prince and military leader of his ancestral house. When these came to the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh in the land of Gilead, they said to them, "The whole community of the Lord sends this message. What act of treachery is this you have committed against the God of Israel? You have seceded from the Lord this day and rebelled against him by building an altar of your own. For the sin of Peor, a plague came upon the community of the Lord. We are still not free of that. Must you now add to it? You are rebelling against the Lord today, and by tomorrow he will be angry with the whole community of Israel. If you consider the land you now possess unclean, cross over to the land the Lord possesses, where the dwelling of the Lord stands, and share that with us. But do not rebel against the Lord, nor involve us in rebellion by building an altar of your own in addition to the altar of the Lord our God." When Achan, son of Zerah, violated the ban, did not wrath fall upon the entire community of Israel? Though it was but a single man, he did not perish alone for his guilt. The Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh replied to the military leaders of the Israelites, "The Lord is the God of gods. The Lord, the God of gods, knows, and Israel shall know. If now we have acted out of rebellion or treachery against the Lord our God, and if we have built an altar of our own to secede from the Lord, or to offer holocausts, grain offerings, or peace offerings upon it, the Lord himself will exact the penalty. We did it rather out of our anxious concern, lest in the future your children should say to our children, 'What have you to do with the Lord, the God of Israel?' For the Lord has placed the Jordan as a boundary between you and us." Joshua chapter 23. Many years later, after the Lord had given the Israelites rest from all their enemies round about them, and when Joshua was old and advanced in years, he summoned all Israel, including their elders, leaders, judges, and officers, and said to them, "I am old and advanced in years. You have seen all that the Lord your God has done for you against all these nations, for it has been the Lord your God himself who fought for you. Bear in mind that I have apportioned among your tribes as their heritage the nation that survive, as well as those I destroyed between the Jordan and the great sea in the west. The Lord your God will drive them out and dislodge them at your approach, so that you will take possession of their land as the Lord your God promised you. Therefore, strive hard to observe and carry out all that is written in the book of the law of Moses, not straying from it in any way or mingling with these nations while they survive among you. You must not invoke their gods or swear by them or serve them or worship them, but you must remain loyal to the Lord your God as you have been to this day. At your approach, the Lord has driven out large and strong nations, and to this day no one has withstood you. One of you puts to flight 1,000, because it is the Lord your God Himself who fights for you, as He promised you. Take great care, however, to love the Lord your God. For if you ever abandon Him and ally yourselves with the remnant of these nations while they survive among you, by intermarrying and intermingling with them, know for certain that the Lord your God will no longer drive these nations out of your way. Instead, they will be a snare and a trap for you, a scourge for your sides and thorns for your eyes, until you perish from this good land which the Lord your God has given you. Today, as you see, I am going the way of all men. So, now acknowledge with your whole heart and soul that not one of all the promises the Lord your God made to you has remained unfulfilled. Every promise has been fulfilled for you with not one single exception. But just as every promise the Lord your God made to you has been fulfilled for you, so will He fulfill every threat, even so far as to exterminate you from this good land which the Lord your God has given you, if you transgress the covenant of the Lord your God, which He enjoined on you, serve other gods and worship them, the anger of the Lord will flare up against you, and you will quickly perish from the good land which He has given you. Joshua chapter 24. Joshua gathered together all the tribes of Israel at Shechem, summoning their elders, their leaders, their judges, and their officers. When they stood in ranks before God, Joshua addressed all the people. Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, in times past your fathers, down to Terah, father of Abraham and Nahor, dwelt beyond the river and served other gods. But I brought your father Abraham from the region beyond the river and led him through the entire land of Canaan. I made his descendants numerous and gave him Isaac. To Isaac I gave Jacob and Esau. To Esau I assigned the mountain region of Seir in which to settle, while Jacob and his children went down to Egypt. Then I sent Moses and Aaron, and smote Egypt with the prodigies which I wrought in her midst. Afterward, I led you out of Egypt, and when you reached the sea, the Egyptians pursued your fathers to the Red Sea with chariots and horsemen. Because they cried out to the Lord, He put darkness between your people and the Egyptians, upon whom He brought the sea so that it engulfed them. After you witnessed what I did to Egypt and dwelt a long time in the desert, I brought you into the land of the Amorites, who lived east of the Jordan. They fought against you, but I delivered them into your power. You took possession of their land, and I destroyed them, the two kings of the Amorites, before you. Then Balak, son of Zippor, king of Moab, prepared to war against Israel. He summoned Balaam, son of Beor, to curse you, but I would not listen to Balaam. On the contrary, he had to bless you, and I saved you from him. Once you crossed the Jordan and came to Jericho, the men of Jericho fought against you, but I delivered them also into your power. And I sent the hornets ahead of you, which drove them, the Amorites, Perizzites, Canaanites, Hittites, Girgashites, Hivites, and Jebusites, out of your way. It was not your sword or your bow. I gave you a land which you had not tilled, and cities which you had not built, to dwell in. You have eaten of vineyards and olive groves which you did not plant. Now therefore fear the Lord and serve Him completely and sincerely. Cast out the gods your fathers served beyond the river and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. If it does not please you to serve the Lord, decide today whom you will serve, the gods your fathers served beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose country you are dwelling. As for me and my household, we will serve the Lord." But the people answered, "Far be it from us to forsake the Lord for the service of other gods. For it was the Lord our God who brought us and our fathers up out of the land of Egypt, out of a state of slavery. He performed those great miracles before our very eyes and protected us along our entire journey and among all the peoples through whom we passed. At our approach, the Lord drove out all the peoples, including the Amorites who dwelt in the land. Therefore, we also will serve the Lord, for he is our God." Joshua, in turn, said to the people, "You may not be able to serve the Lord, for he is a holy God. He is a jealous God who will not forgive your transgressions or your sins. If, after the good he has done for you, you forsake the Lord and serve strange gods, he will do evil to you and destroy you." But the people answered Joshua, "We will still serve the Lord." Joshua therefore said to the people, "You are your own witnesses that you have chosen to serve the Lord." They replied, "We are indeed." "Now therefore, put away the strange gods that are among you and turn your hearts to the Lord, the God of Israel." Then the people promised Joshua, "We will serve the Lord our God and obey his voice." So Joshua made a covenant with the people that day and made statutes and ordinances for them at Shechem, which he recorded in the book of the law of God. Then he took a large stone and set it up there under the oak that was in the sanctuary of the Lord. And Joshua said to all the people, "The stone shall be our witness, for it has heard all the words which the Lord spoke to us. It shall be a witness against you, should you wish to deny your God." Then Joshua dismissed the people, each to his own heritage. After these events, Joshua, son of Nun, servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110. He was buried within the limits of his heritage at Timnath Serah in the mountain region of Ephraim, north of Mount Gash. Israel served the Lord during the entire lifetime of Joshua and that of the elders who outlived Joshua, and knew all that the Lord had done for Israel. The bones of Joseph, which the Israelites had brought up from Egypt, were buried in Shechem, in the plot of ground Jacob had bought from the sons of Hamor, father of Shechem, for 100 pieces of money. This was a heritage of the descendants of Joseph. When Eleazar, son of Aaron, also died, he was buried on the hill which had been given to his son Phinehas, in the mountain region of Ephraim.